The reason I quit the police by NSWPF. This story has been altered to conceal the names of people and locations, and I have been a member of the New South Wales Police Force for 33 years, and what I witnessed on this night was something I know I will never get rid of from my mind, and will most likely be with me until the day I die. It was about 2:25 a.m. on a quiet Thursday evening, and my shift was ending at 3 a.m., which meant I was in a good mood as the shift had been relatively easy. That was until I was assigned a job to investigate reports of screaming and distressed cries of help from a property surrounded by bushland. Now the calls to investigate this property were frequent, and I assumed it would go how it always did. I would arrive with my flashing blue and red lights and drive down the driveway to witness a rather large house surrounded by dense bush and trees. No lights would be visible as the house was unoccupied due to the owners going missing a few years earlier. I told my partner Matthew that we had been called to the house again. "Let's go there, find nothing and report back," he said, grabbing his hat and gulping down the last of his lukewarm tea. Fast forward 20 minutes to 2:45 a.m., and we arrived at the gates which separated the already hidden house from the road. We slowly drove down the long driveway, observing the trees on either side of us to ensure all way calm. It was silent. There was no action of any sort on the driveway, and we found nothing at the house. At least that's what we thought would happen. On this night there was an eerie feeling creeping up on us as we drew closer to the house. Matthew was ready to radio our commanding officer the news that nothing was amiss, until we arrived at the other side of the driveway. The house stood there silent and proud, shrouded as always, yet unlike the other jobs here. There was a light on in the living room. We ensured our tasers were ready to go in the event of an aggressive intruder, and got out of the police car, leaving the headlights on and pointed at the house. The front door is still locked and no windows appear to be damaged. Matthew whispered, eyeing the single light in the living room. We simultaneously approached the front door and knocked with a heavy thud. Nothing. We knocked a second time, hoping the occupants didn't hear the first knock, and still there was nothing. This is where it gets creepy. Upon knocking for a third time, Matthew went stiff as a statue began shaking. "What? What can you see?" I stopped. I could feel goosebumps forming on my arms. Peering out a window from the second floor was a person. A woman wearing a white gown was staring down at us. We couldn't see her clearly as the window was foggy, but we knew it was a woman aged around 21. Matthew was petrified, and I can't blame him for being so. I called out to the woman and demanded she open the front door. She stared for a few more moments and turned around and walked off. We could hear footsteps coming down the rickety staircase on the other side of the door, and braced ourselves to stand face to face with the woman. Then it all went silent as it once was. Matthew put a hand on his radio and notified the commander that there was a possible intruder, and we needed an extra car as support. Before the commander answered, an almighty bang ricocheted through the house. It sounded like a gunshot, so Matthew and I high-tailed it back to the car and took cover behind it against the boot. Matthew turned his head to me after looking back at the house as more bangs followed. I was texting my wife that there were gunshots and I loved her. "Paul, you need to look now," Matthew said to me. The fear was amplified through his voice as he said this. I slowly peeked around the side of the car and almost shrieked at what I saw. The living room light was off, but now the entire second floor was illuminated by a green light, a bright green light. We studied it, slowly calming ourselves and reassuring one another that backup was coming. The banging stopped, and when we were ready, we ventured very slowly back towards the house, almost crawling. As we got to the front porch, we heard another sound. Not a footstep or a loud bang. This sound was a blood-curdling scream that has stuck with me to this day. We couldn't wait any longer for backup. We breached the front door, guns drawn, and followed the source of the screaming together. We dare not split up in a place like this. Not tonight. We went upstairs ever so slowly, not blinking and hyper-vigilant of our surroundings. The green light was coming from the room we saw the woman in. As I neared the door, Matthew bumped a vase and it fell with a loud crack. The second it hit the ground, we heard a male voice yelling to us, "Hey! Hey, what are you doing here?" He yelled. "My name is Senior Constable Cooper of Junee Police." "Show yourself," I yelled firmly. "You have no idea what you have stumbled across, Senior Constable," the man said, thumping something, prompting more screams. I said nothing, and readied myself for the other side. I hit the door one hard kick, and it came tumbling down. Inside was a circle of blood, 15 to 20 green candles, and a white gown that looked brand new. There was no sign of anyone in the room at the time, and we were certain the screams and talking came from here. "What the fuck is this?" I said, once again turning to face Matthew. But Matthew was nowhere to be seen. "Matthew," I called a dozen times to no avail. I could hear sirens in the distance, and as I looked out the window I could see distinct red and blue flashing lights through the trees. Backup was here, but Matthew was not. For the next 35 minutes I searched the house from top to bottom for Matthew with the 3 officers that had just arrived. I ventured down into a cellar under the kitchen and found something that haunts me to this day. Matthew's credentials identifying him as a member of the New South Wales Police, as well as his gun and 3 bloody fingers, placed neatly on the ground. I screamed at the top of my lungs for the other officers to come to me and call for forensics and virtually everyone available at the time. By the time I got home it was 5:30 a.m. and the sun was rising. Matthew was never seen again, nor did forensics find any trace of him. The fingers found were identified as his, or at least 2 of them were. The third was unknown and remains unknown to this day. It took me 45 minutes after getting home to decide to resign effective immediately. It has been 10 years since that night, and I still hear the screams of that woman and the distinct voice that warned me in that house. Please, if you ever hear screaming in the middle of the night, call the proper law enforcement. Do not venture by yourself to investigate. I'm a former police officer. It's time to share the most disturbing case I've handled by horror mode. I'm going to share a few stories with you, one by one though, because if I was overwhelmed by them, I have a feeling you kids will be too. I'm Officer Bradley. I retired from the force 10 years ago at the ripe age of 50. I'll begin with a story from my 20 years as a police officer that stuck with me like a deep thorn. January 17th, 2005. We got a call about a woman who had locked herself in her bathroom. She said her boyfriend was trying to kill her. My partner Mason and I arrived at a house on the end of a street. The lampposts flickered yellow, and the wind danced the trees and bushes. The clouds were thick and the air ice cold. We took position at the front door. We knocked. "Police, open up." Only the sound of wind chimes. Mason kicked the door open with all the force he could muster. We scanned the house downstairs. No one in sight. Clear. "You hear that?" I said. Mason looked up at the stairs. Gentle cries, a woman, so subtle and as if muffled behind a door in a room. "Thought she was supposed to be downstairs," said Mason. We made our way upstairs. "Miss—" "It's okay," I began. "You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." The crying stopped abruptly, as if someone hit pause. Then it started again. "But he's still here," replied the woman from inside the bedroom. My partner and I checked the entire house. "No one's here, ma'am. You're safe." Downstairs the front door slammed shut. My partner and I gave each other a gaze, and I could notice his brow sweating despite the cold night. I used my head to gesture for him to take a look. He stood from atop the stairs and looked down at the front door. "Just the wind, I think," he said. Then a gentle voice came from inside the bathroom. "Are you sure, Officer Bradley?" the woman asked. The entire night at that scene, neither my partner Mason nor I used our names out loud. Not once. "Ma'am, do you need help or not?" Mason was agitated. "We need to know you're okay, so step back because I'm kicking it in." A part of me believes Mason was more eager to see the woman's face, to find out who she was and how she knew what she did, than he was for her safety. He wanted peace of mind. "No, hold on, I said. She might be sitting right by the door. We don't want to hurt her." Then she said it. "Officer Bradley, tell Mason that if he touches this door I will visit his family in the late hours of a certain night and break down a door of my own." The woman's voice was an octave deeper when she said that. I never understood the expression, white as a ghost. Do people actually turn that pale in the face? I learned that they in fact did when I saw my partner react to those sinister words. I couldn't stop him from kicking in that bedroom door this time, but when he did, we found nobody inside. There wasn't a window above the shower through which to escape or another door to go through. And yet we were certain that we just had a full conversation with a woman behind this door. We scanned the entire house, including the backyard, one last time, inch by inch. Nothing. My partner and I communicated non-verbally the rest of the night. So when it was time to leave, we gave each other a look and left the house without even looking back. Now this is the part of the story I haven't told anyone, not even Mason. We were sufficiently disturbed, so I didn't want to tell him what I'm about to tell you. When we left the house, I drove us back to the station that night. He probably thought I didn't notice, but his hands were shaking too much to drive comfortably. He doesn't drink coffee. As I reversed the cruiser out the street, Mason didn't look back at the house. But the truth is I did, and I sincerely wish that I hadn't. I looked and squinted at a garbage can by the side of the house to see a strange, dark figure kneeling by the gate, as if watching us leave. And as we finally drove away, as the house became more and more distant in our mirror, the figure slowly stood itself up. And I'll swear even today that as it stood up, it didn't stop rising until its head peeked over the roof of that two-story house. I'm a police officer that quit his job after a paranormal experience. By the Bat Belfry. I'm not a superstitious person. I didn't believe in ghosts or demons until now. Yes, stuff happens that can't be explained. But I just want you all to know that it took more than a couple of flying spoons or a door opening on its own to scare me out of my job. Since the department didn't find any reason to keep this police report confidential, I will now detail you everything I can on what happened on the scariest night of my life. We had just received word from dispatch to check out a noise complaint in a small neighborhood whose name I will not disclose for their privacy. It was me and my partner. Let's call him Paul and I'll go by Mike. We arrived some time after midnight. The street is dead. Everyone is sound asleep at this point. We park our patrol car in front of the aforementioned house and exit the vehicle. We knock on the door and let our presence known. Police. Is anyone home? A little girl, 8 to 10 in appearance, opens the door and peeks through the gap. Hey, I crouch to make myself less intimidating. Is your parent or guardian home? She shakes her head. My first thought was that she probably had the TV a little too high and woke up the neighbors. But before I could tell her to stay inside and lock the doors then part, I heard the sound of crashing silverware coming from what I presumed would be the kitchen. The entire house was nearly pitch black. The girl answering the door and shaking her head let me know she was alone, which makes whoever made that noise an intruder as far as it concerns me. I asked the girl to step outside and turn to Paul. Paul, why don't you give her one of those lollipops you like to suck on when you're nervous? Paul gave me a cold stare as the girl giggled. They went to go wait by the car as I slowly pushed the door all the way open. Police. If there is anyone in this house, please let yourself be known. Without a warrant, I had no right to enter the building. I tried my best to spot whoever made the noise, but it is too dark to see. Just any sign of a threat and I would be justified to search the house. But nothing. I left the door open and headed back towards Paul and the girl. Hey again. I don't think we introduced ourselves. I'm Officer Mike. This is my partner Paul. If I may ask, what is your name? Emily, she answered. That's a pretty name. So Emily, again if I may ask, where is your family? As soon as I had finished my sentence, the television in the living room turned on, volume fully up. Me and Paul quickly turned in surprise and could see the television playing static from outside. We put Emily in the back seat of the patrol car for her safety, as no civilians were allowed in the front seats. We then, against our better judgment, enter the house. We tried every switch in the house, but no lights came on. While wandering the house cautiously, I would catch a person standing in the mirrors. I thought it was Paul, but every time I looked behind me, Paul was nowhere to be found. As I returned to the front door along with Paul, we both jumped as running footsteps echoed down the hall. We detached our firearms and aimed it at the source. The footsteps got louder and got closer, but no one ever appeared physically. Lamps, chairs, and other stuff started getting thrown around by an invisible force as the footsteps reached us. We sprinted out of the house and waited by the front yard. The footsteps seemed to stop, followed by the police siren that went off. I ran to the car and silenced the siren. I looked back at Paul, who seemed shocked. "You all right, Paul?" He takes a lollipop out of its package and puts it in his mouth. "Yep." I opened the rear door and checked up on Emily. "You okay?" She nodded her head, so I walked back to Paul. "I don't know what to make of this," he said. "Yeah, me neither." "No, seriously. Ignore the running invisible man that knocked everything down for a second. All the family photos, pictures on the wall," he points at Emily. "She's not in any of them. So what are you thinking?" The footsteps led outside. Then the siren goes off. There's a million buttons in that car. What are the chances? "Paul, are you trying to tell me that Emily is haunted? How do you explain what we just saw?" "I'm sure there's an explanation." The TV turns on when we take Emily outside, prompting us to check it out. Someone or something shows up in the mirrors, but ducks away. I remember wanting to shut him up, not because he wasn't making any sense, but because he was. I know you've seen it. It was prowling around. Then it runs outside and gets in the car. Tries all the buttons. I think a ghost is trying to get to the girl. I just stood there, not sure what to say, until Paul decided to start walking back towards the house. "Paul, what are you doing?" "It only shows up in the mirrors. That's how we find it." I followed him inside and watched as he takes a book from the counter and breaks the nearest mirror. "What's the matter with you?" "That's someone's property." He takes a shard and hands another to me. "It's not every day you get to arrest a ghost." We aimed our flashlights all over the house, waiting for something to appear in the broken glass. I recall praying to God Almighty to not let anything show up, but it did. I panicked as it swung its red bony arm at my back. It ripped right through my uniform, causing me to fall forward. I dropped the glass, which broke into smaller chunks. It continued clawing at my shirt and flesh, but stopped when Paul opened fire. I heard its screech fading as Paul helped me up. We both then hurried back outside to find Emily missing from the back seat. It was difficult explaining what happened to the department without sounding like nut jobs. The police cameras who we were betting on to prove our stories had shut off the moment we entered the house. The thing, whatever it was, must have turned them off while we were unaware. The only part of our story that our police captain took seriously was the girl Emily. The captain brought up a missing person report and asked us if this was the girl we saw. It was. It's been just a few days since I gave up the badge to save whatever little pride I could spare. I just ask to whoever reads this and to whomever it may reach. The next time a door opens on its own or things move by themselves in your home, check the mirrors.